We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody who joined us on this very chilly evening. And we will go ahead and do a call to order. Mr. Cook.
Yes, Mr. Kismet.
Here.
Dr. Gase.
Here.
Mr. Perez.
Here.
Mr. Williams. Here. Dr. McBride.
Here. Sounds like everybody's mics are working well. That'll take us to our next item, which is adopting the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections?
No, ma'am.
All right, so we will be adopting the agenda with no corrections. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second. Yes.
Mr. Perez. Dr. Gase.
Yes.
Mr. Williams. Yes. Dr. McBride.
Yes, thank you. All right, this brings us to item 4, which is our recognitions, and I will turn this over to, it looks like, Mr. Bowes.
Thank you, Dr. McBride. Appreciate that. Apple Award winner, one of the many highlights of our first quarter of school this year. We have 2 recipients. One is with us tonight. The other will be honored in December, who is Mrs. Annette Edmond. She was our classified staff member who is a secretary here at the middle school. Unfortunately, Mrs. Edmond is at a workshop in Columbus here today and tomorrow, so she could not be with us tonight. Nonetheless, we do have our certified award winner, Mrs. Elizabeth Humphrey. Liz, would you please come forward? Liz was nominated by colleague Mr. Aaron Schmitz, who is also an art teacher within the district at the high school. Liz Humphrey started working for Tiffin City Schools in December of 2004 as a substitute teacher right after graduating from the University of Findlay with a Bachelor of Arts in Multi-Age Visual Art Education. Before receiving her bachelor's, Liz had received her associate's degree in graphics communication from Terra Community College, as well as completing a summer studying abroad in Florence, Italy. She was hired in the spring of 2005 as an art teacher at Columbian High School. While working for Tiffin City Schools, Liz has received her master's in education and classroom technology from Bowling State. Exhibitions to support our students and has taken it to the next level with participation in numerous shows and contests. Liz has remained committed to great teaching by staying the course amidst 2 years of a pandemic insanity, being flexible and innovative with the content she has been assigned to teach, and juggling countless responsibilities outside of school. In the area of leadership, Liz is always the first to email the visual arts teachers with updates about what is going on in our field, coordinates meetings, and makes many decisions that guide our department. A co-art teacher said this about Liz. As a new teacher here 6 years ago, she showed me the ropes and has been an inspiration for me. I didn't know what I was capable of when I got here, and she helped me find my way. Liz always signs her emails with "smile" and tries her best to honor that when she works with her colleagues. In the area of student-centered, Mr. Schmidt says Liz's open heart and mind embraces students from all walks of life, celebrating the young artists we work with. She makes it a priority to be engaged, prepared, and compassionate for her students while they are in her care. Her spirit is contagious, and even students who may normally be overlooked are given equal individualized attention. And in the area of outstanding accomplishments, Liz has helped lead the charge for the art department, collaborating to win literally hundreds of awards and recognitions for our students over the years. She has been spotlighted for her teaching, even on a billboard, bringing even more positive attention to our program. Liz is a brilliant teacher and deserves to be recognized for her dedication, passion, and self-sacrifice for all she does for our students. She is truly a godsend for this community and continually infuses Columbian High School visual arts programs with the energy it needs to maintain its exceedingly high standards. Liz Humphrey is amazing at what she does. Congratulations, Liz. Thank you for all you do. In TCS. Congratulations. I do have the certificate.
For the
Please do, yes.
Thank you. All right. I have a thank you I would like to give, and I'm going to relate it to this deck of cards here. So I first want to say the deck of cards represents my parents and my family and my community I came from. They gave me this deck of cards as a young age. And in that deck of cards, there are the clubs. And I think of the clubs as my board members right here. And I think of them also as my administration over there. The support I get from you guys in the art department is amazing. It's off the charts that you guys are always saying yes when I come up with some crazy idea. And I want to thank you. And definitely to Mr. Kizabeth for saying yes to a young teacher, student teacher, and hiring me. That was definitely a thank you there. And then I look at the diamonds, and I think of that as the supporting staff. From the lunch room that fills up the bellies of my students so that they can come in and ready to work, to Mr. Morton that says, if you want to make art, make it so good that somebody wants to steal it. So I want to thank them. And then the hearts. When I look at them, I think of my colleagues that work day in and day out, come in, no matter what. They really are the heart and soul of this school district. And they always are supporting me with my crazy ideas and Mr. Smith's crazy ideas. And definitely my colleagues, Mr. Smith, Leslie, Claudia, Sarah, and my mentors, Bob, Tina, Marcy, all of them. Thank them for the coaching and the guidance they've given me throughout my career. So I want to thank them. Then finally, the best card in the whole deck, right, is the Ace of Spades. And this is the students. I want to thank my students. Oh gosh, can't get teary-eyed. Thank my students for coming in and day out and doing their best and trying so hard. Sometimes they're a little rough around the edges, you know, I say. Sometimes they're ripped and they're got some issues, and then we have to put those back together. But they come in every day and they listen to Mrs. Humphrey and her crazy ideas, and they just go for it. And that's how we win these contests, honestly. It's the love that they have and the support they have. And the whole district and the whole art department working together makes my deck of cards complete. So I want to thank everybody that has helped me in my career so far. So thank you very much for this award and everything else. Thank you.
Wait, hold on. Let's do a different one. Mr. Alvarado. Get in. They're leaving after this because it's his birthday today.
All right.
Oh,
Bye, GWs.
Yeah.
yes. Mrs. Humphrey, I would be remiss if I didn't say, I have to say that you and your art department are at like a celebrity level in my house. So thank you for all you do. You reach a number of different types of learners, and it is evident in what you do. Thank you.
Well, and to the whole
Mr.
entire
Humphrey, I
art
would like to
department.
add as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
What you guys bring out in our kids is amazing. I don't even think they believe they can do that stuff. And when we see it, it's like, wow, where'd they
Incredible.
come up with this stuff? So thank you very much for that.
You showed us your creativity with the deck of cards. I appreciate your infectious smile, your encouragement, your enthusiasm, and what Mr. Perez talked about, your ability to pull potential out of kids to reach their potentials is outstanding. So thanks for all you've done, and thanks for all you continue to do.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much and happy birthday. This will now bring us on to item 5. So Mr. Richards, I will turn it over to you.
Yes. Pardon. We have a few board updates that we're going to talk about later on. To talk about board policy EBCD and EBCDR. We already have those policies, but these are language that's required by statute. Currently within our policy, we have blizzard bag days. Some of you might remember, probably not many of you, when we had to go to blizzard bag days. Now with online learning, it is a state requirement that anything over 5 calamity days, the state still gives you 5 calamity days, but anything over 5 calamity days, we must have synchronous online learning. That is a requirement by state law. So these are policies that simply replace the blizzard bag days because that's no longer allowed in the law and updates it with the new law requirements. That'll be something that we have to work on with our leadership team and working with the union. Actually, per statute, we do have to have the approval of the union president for whatever plan we come up with. So that is a plan over the 5th day, that it has to be synchronous online learning for all ages. That's the law. So, but I think when we talk about policy updates, one of the things that we really need to probably talk about, and I know I've talked to the policy committee, is the potential to really do a policy audit. It's been a long time since we've really taken a deep dive at some of our policy things. It costs some money to do that, and Mr. Cook has a lot more contact with the auditor's office. I just have a little bit, but my understanding is that this is an area where the auditor is going to be.
I've been told it's an area of focus this year for the upcoming audit is just policy compliance, what we have in place, what we don't have in place. So timing for his recommendation there is excellent.
So I think just taking a look, and that's going to be, it's going to be a heavy lift by the policy committee because what they will do is we will literally go through policy by policy and explore, are these policies up to date? Do we need to make changes to them? What are the choices that the Board of Education does have? Because anytime they make those policy updates, there's latitude. There are suggestions that they give, but ultimately it's up to the board to create the policy that they want. I just think there's a number of avenues where it would be good to tighten up that process to make sure we are updated on some of those policy issues.
If I can add to that.
Yes, please do.
This did come up about a year and a half ago, so beginning of 2022. Larry, I think you were on the committee at the time as well. Cost-wise, it's not free. We're talking about something on the order of $10,000, right? And there's a very small ongoing cost per year for the hosting of those policies and the regular updates that come with those, and a little bit of consulting to help guide us through the updates. So again, our policies are just very out of date. It doesn't mean that all of them are even incorrect at this point or need to be changed. It's just once you get to a certain point, you're at risk of having some policies that might just be a little stale.
Weren't we exploring which entity to go with? Because there were 2 main entities. Right.
Our current policies are OSBA, right? So it's a smaller lift to refresh with the same set of policies. So again, just so everybody's kind of aware, think about $10,000 for the initial lift and then 1,500-ish per year to have them hosted and again, get that consulting to help keep them updated. So.
And then finally, included in the board packet is an annual report on nutrition standards. It's a pretty basic comment. This is something that is required by law for us to look at with the board, not even for approval, but it's required that we notify the board about our nutrition standards. So those were the three things off the superintendent's recommendations and reports. But if anybody had any questions about the policy sections or those specific policies, eliminating blizzard bag days and coming up with online learning days, Dr. McBride, I'm going to sense by the question that you had for me, this is for all grades. Yes, it is for all grades. I don't make the laws. The laws are passed, and that's what we are to comply with.
Well, it's interesting because we've had the discussion a few times about this change. And I feel like just now I was like, wait, so this is going to be the expectation for our kindergartners, our first graders? Is it applicable to our preschoolers as well? Like,
We are, it was common practice and it was board policy up until hopefully here in a few minutes that we have blizzard bag days.
Right.
And the concept behind blizzard bag days would be, it wasn't necessarily online. It could be a packet that was taken home or something of that nature. Now what they've gone with, and I'm not going to say whether I agree with it or disagree with it, but the logic behind it is with the day and age of technology, instead of just giving no teacher direction during that day with technology, we should be able to provide more real-time support for kids so that it would feel more like school than a one-off. I think that was the logic behind it. But no, it would be for all students. And I will just say it again because it's worth repeating. It is required by law.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but it also requires you to have plans to show how the disabled students are going to have their needs met as
Yes.
well, correct? And I think these were the concerns we had in the pandemic was, one, their needs weren't immediately met. And I think there's an expectation that they're actually going to do more virtually now into this, but they haven't given the guidelines as to what that's going to be, correct?
Correct. There's really been no guidance on this topic. It is left up to each individual district to determine what that best looks like for each district.
any further questions regarding these pieces?
I had one on the nutrition. We have pop machines in the buildings. Those are off during school hours, is that correct?
Those are
Or
off.
they sell Gatorade. They can't sell that either, can they? Until after hours?
After hours, and it has to be the diet versions. You can't sell regular pop at all during any time of school day. It has to be off during lunch periods.
Right?
You can go into those machines outside of lunch periods.
Can?
You can,
Okay,
outside of lunch periods. It cannot be in competition with lunches.
okay.
That's state law.
Actually, I think that one is federal. I will just say, as a person, and I think Mr. Alvarado is still here, school districts used to earn a lot of money from
Good.
those vending machines. And there used to be some wholesale competitions whenever a contract was up with Pepsi or Coke. It really was the cola wars. And there was a bidding process that went on with that. And the amount of money that we get now from those is really, I mean, there were school districts that put in new scoreboards with money with like that in the past. Now we get a little bit. Dr. Gase, I'm fairly positive it's federal
Yeah,
guidelines.
okay.
Any further questions? Thank you for those updates. This brings us to item 6, which is the opportunity for the public to address the board. Per the policy, each person addressing the board will give their name and address. Several people wish to speak. Each person has allotted 3 minutes. I'm not going to read the rest of the rules while I look to see if there is anybody who is present or wanting to speak. Move on. This brings us to our consent agenda. So I will read the headers for each of these and then ask for discussion or ask for a motion and then discussion. So 7.1 is approve the minutes. And that is from the October 9th special board meeting, October 23rd special meeting, and the October 23rd regular meeting. 7.2, approve the treasurer's report. 7.3, approve committee reports. 7.4, approve job descriptions. 7.5, resignations. 7.6, administrative employment, which appears blank. 7.7, employee professional staff. 7.8, employee support staff. 7.9, donations and grants. I'll let that get up on the screen. We'll thank each of these individuals and businesses who have
Done.
contributed to the district and to its needs. Thank you to each of you. And then 7.10 is stipends, which goes through page 6, which is the last one, is 7.11, statement of purpose and budget reports of 2023 and 2024. We'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Any discussion or questions?
But just to clarify, I think it said under 7.6 administrative employment, it's purposely blank, correct?
Yes, there is nothing.
It's just a
That-
placeholder.
That's a
but-
placeholder. if
So the
we ever
public
have anything.
understands it's okay.
Okay, perfect.
I had a question on the support services committee meeting. The tennis courts, it sounds like we've had some troubles already.
Yes.
Just one question. How long does the warranty or
We're still under the warranty, so
how long does that go on though?
I believe it's for one full calendar year.
1 year, I believe.
Right.
Is
So-
that one full calendar year after the fixes are done? Or does it extend another year then or?
That I don't know the answer to. I do know that any repairs that have to happen to the tennis court, they've already had a meeting, and their plan is after the season right now, which it's boys play in the spring, that they plan on addressing those again in the spring and fixing those. So I don't know the specific answer to that one, but I can find that out and report back.
Yeah, I just concerned because we haven't even had a winter yet.
Correct.
That was a
Yeah.
concern of support services.
Right, right.
And that's
okay,
why they got on it right away.
Right,
So they're very much aware of it.
okay,
And we're very aware that it's under warranty.
great, thanks.
Any further questions regarding the consent agenda?
The only other thing I would point out is that a lot of those donations, as you alluded to, Dr. McBride, are in memory of John Bowen. My understanding is Mr. Bowen was a high school principal at Tiffin Columbian and a secondary director of secondary for Tiffin City Schools.
Thank you to each of those who donated in his name. Mr. Cook?
Dr. Gase,
Yes,
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Kizabeth,
Yes.
Mr. Perez, Dr. McBride.
Yes. This time brings us to our action items. Our first is 8.01, so approve amendment to locally approved diploma seal. We'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Richards?
And Mr. Alvarado's here, but I think this is probably something that years ago when the notion of graduation seals was first rolled out, the boards of education were able to set the number of hours. It was the Board of Education originally set it at 120. I don't think there was probably a lot of guidance. Mr. Alvarado and his team has kind of checked around to see kind of what is standard. And actually 60 is still on the high end, I believe, but we believe that that's appropriate for students. Students, just as a reminder, are required to get 2 graduation seals. So a community service seal could be one of them. I think there's, how many total seals? 12? 12 total seals. So this is a recommendation that the high school's made that I'm in support of.
so could you define community service seal?
It is district approved and recognized community service. So it has to be something that the district says, yes, we give credit for that to be community service. that can be defined by the district as well as to how we define community service. So this would be just shifting that from 120 hours to 60 hours.
How many thus far have earned the 120-hour seal?
For Alvarado?
They have to have 2 seals for graduation.
Correct.
Do we know what, I know Tiffin Calvert has a,
One has to be state. The other one doesn't have to be local, but
Calvert has a community service, what are their hours? Is it 60?
Well, they're
The thing that
private
bothers
school.
me, again, we appear to be lowering standards. 60 hours on a 36-week school year, that means less than 2 hours a week of community service to get the seal.
But also less than 2 hours for students who are going to school 7 to 8 hours a day, are in
And
extracurriculars.
if they're doing
a lot
that,
of
they
times
don't
have
need that
jobs
seal.
And working.
and working, but also let's make it attainable, because if we set it so high, one, that it's not comparable to the districts around us and it's not attainable, we might be dissuading students who that's not achievable.
Well, I would be in agreement that 120 is too many.
Sure.
I think it's got to be manageable too. We don't have that many opportunities in the community, and we want the kids to get involved in them too.
What's the requirement for NHS?
I do not
So
know.
for the National Honor Society, I think it's 20 a year.
20 a year?
I believe it's 20 a year. I could be wrong, but I'm trying to picture the
I don't
paperwork.
remember.
Yeah, because I think the purpose of this seal is to get kids involved in the community. So you want it to be something doable and that they make the connections with their community, not that they excel in beating records on it. It's,
So why don't we make it 120 hours, including employed hours?
It's a different seal.
there is a job seal.
There is a job.
There is a job seal.
So this is specifically just for
This is solely community service.
service, okay.
So I'm not certain that I worry about the narrative being that we're lowering standards, and I see how you're getting there, Mr. Kizabeth. I think that what we're doing is we're making it actually more attainable and something that is maybe something that people will, instead of looking at and go, I can't manage that. That doesn't fit into my already very full schedule. It's now something I can achieve.
Well, then I got a better idea. Make it 30. Make it 30. We can always raise it.
It is,
So why not make it 30 so that more people do it and then say, oh, okay, well, now we got too many. Let's raise it.
Well, I trust what Mr. Alvarado's research has done to look at what is comparable and what is appropriate given what other districts are doing to keep us both competitive and,
Well, do we know what other districts, what
Yeah, he did
percentages? No, I mean, I ask you, right, but how many of those districts, how many students in those districts are getting it? Well, that's the important question, isn't it? I mean, just because that's 60 hours doesn't mean if nobody's doing 60 hours either, then what good is that? Why don't we one up and say, hey, let's go 30 and we'll get, half the student population. We'll define it ourselves and we can always change it.
yeah, this is a policy that is defined by the Board of Education. So
You say
Dr.
most
Gase,
schools
to your
are
point,
30?
Yeah, I mean,
set a number now
make it
and we
1
can
hour.
change it.
Make it 1 hour. Let's get everybody.
Mr. Alvarado,
Our kids are involved in athletics and sports, and those kids who typically aren't involved in those things are working outside. So then to find time for your athletics or your groups or clubs and work, and then to
it keeps it rigorous but also attainable.
But to Mr. Kisbeth's point, the point, okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so we're not talking about this seal for anybody who would be graduating this school year, correct? Okay, so this is,
So take effect this year.
we're changing a standard that's in place for current seniors. Okay, when do you need us to give you a decision on this?
I was going to move the table.
Because there's a lot of questions here that I think are legitimate to answer. So do you need this voted on now, or can we have a month for you to find out answers to those questions? Okay.
I
All
make
right.
a motion to table it, so I would think I would need a
I
second.
think I would second that.
All right, so we're going to table it. Motion to table.
And then one, and I bet it doesn't, but does it include community service as part of a sanction from the juvenile court?
I don't believe so.
That does count, okay.
Not certain why we wouldn't. It's community service, community service.
The a penalty is a credit then? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. I didn't know if they got credit for it too. Because sometimes in juvenile court, they get ordered to do community service as part of their delinquency disposition. So
Right.
So I will go back. The Board of Education ultimately, there are 3 seals where the Board of Education, it is truly a locally defined seal. So we can define it, and when I say we, you all, it can be defined however we so desire. There's no guidelines, there's nothing that we have to do. So while it's been our practice to say that we're taking that, that is not a requirement. That can be locally defined. Everything on this seal can be locally defined.
So can we get our?
I just find it inappropriate to base our decisions on other districts.
Okay?
That's inappropriate because it's our district, not any other district. So if we define, we want more kids to get this seal, then set the bar low enough so that they'll get it. They'll at least try. And then we can always raise it if you say, wow, this is not extinguished enough. We need to raise it. Well, then you can raise it. But until you know what the threshold is, how do we know 60 is going to be, met with approval? I mean, we don't know.
And just for the purpose of discussion, I don't know if we've ever spoken to the people who do the community service to see what their needs are.
Right.
If what they think would help them get kids involved.
Facilitate the opportunities.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, in a larger vision, volunteerism in the adult life is extremely important. This community service is a good way to incorporate our next adults into that volunteerism.
I think
I
the more
understand that.
feet you get in the door, the better chance you have at exposure. And maybe it's only 30 required, but they'll say, wow, I'm having such a good time. I'm going to do 60 or 90 or whatever. Yeah.
Oh, careful.
I think you guys have given us feedback that Mr. Alvarado and I can go back to and he can work with his team on, and we can have something for December.
Yeah, we have a motion to table that.
To
We
table
have,
it.
we have a motion on the table to table the adjustment of the required hours. Mr. Cook?
Correct. Mr. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Isbeth,
Yes,
Dr. Gase,
Yes.
Dr. McBride.
Yes.
Tabled.
8.2, approve the cash balance resolution. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
As we discussed earlier, is to look at about having, and this is something that the Finance Committee has looked at. I think it was discussed at the last board meeting, to have a policy, or have a resolution, I should say, not a policy, that just guides the district as to when do we need to decide to go to the voters to ask for potential monies. This is the resolution that was crafted.
We have a motion and a second.
It's coming from Finance Committee. It's really a board directive to Mr. Richards. So it's what we want to tell them that we want is basically our policy, correct?
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
and I think we felt comfortable with the 90 days. We discussed it over several meetings, so.
Just for perspective, historically, we've had generally more than 90 days.
Correct. Well over 100.
So just so that it is on the record and it is clear, can you explain the importance of this timeframe and of that cash balance, why that is an important number, and why it's a targeted number?
So it's an important number from the sense, last month when I gave the 5-year forecast, I talked about that storm out on the horizon. When we forecast that we're going to fall below that 90-day threshold, we can begin to take action, go to Home Depot, buy our plywood ahead of time to prepare for that coming fiscal storm, whether that's an increase in revenue taxes, a reduction in staff through, my preference would be attrition, looking at those things, but preparing ahead of time so that we target out in the future. We're not waiting for next year's decisions tonight. We're 3-4 years out based on trends with our current expenses to accommodate this figure.
I think what it generally helps is us make minor course corrections instead of major course corrections, which are always painful.
It's
right?
tough to turn the Titanic on a dime. We have a large budget, so this allows us to plan ahead and forecast those to meet this threshold so that we can
Wait a second.
continue to educate.
You got me there. Hurricanes, icebergs, you know, I'm a little confused.
Fiscal,
I'm joking.
fiscal. Okay, you lost me for a second. I thought, oh, I think you had him going. You got me there.
Basic idea, make sure you have enough money is not good guidance.
Yeah.
Keep it within this range is guidance.
Correct.
But also, it gives a resolution. The resolution gives us the ability to work at a preventative nature as opposed to a reactionary nature.
We are proactive with this kind of decision making.
And I think with our work discussion earlier, I think it highlights that this board is actively making its finances its number one priority at this point. And that this is just a piece of that. You know, we're laying out the policy that we expect something from our administration before we're making those big corrections. So
What I like though about it is it allows us to get a little closer to the edge. You know, historically, we've been ultra conservative. And when you're ultra conservative, that's fine. It looks good to the auditors and everybody else. You dot your T's and cross your I's. Nope, cross your eyes, not your I's, cross your T's. But the point is that you also lose out on a lot of opportunities to get something that you need right now or that hasn't been planned but needs to be done. And I think this allows it to get close to the edge, but not too close.
We're not a bank. We're here to educate students, help invest in the community. And this is going to allow us to do that.
Yeah.
Sure, I'd love to have endless amounts of money in the bank.
Right.
But we have to educate kids, and that takes staff and resources and facilities.
Any further questions or discussion? Mr. Cook?
Dr. Gase,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Kizabeth,
Yes.
Mr. Perez, Dr. McBride.
Yes. Item 8.3, approve the resolution declaring proper public purpose. Entertain a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Oh, go ahead.
I'll let you.
Mr. Cook?
Thank you. This resolution allows me to expend district funds for meetings where administrators or staff members or staff who's provided. We don't have a policy that allows that now. We have done this in the past on an isolated case-by-case basis. I've had some questions this year. I couldn't do anything to allow, like Mr. Alvarado for his staff. This allows me to expend those funds without question. There's an old Attorney General opinion from back when Betty Montgomery was Attorney General that's still enforced by the Auditor's Office. And this does now corrects that so that the board is aware we can provide duties for staff for proper public purpose on trainings and meetings.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? Mr. Cook?
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Kizabeth,
Yes.
Mr. Perez,
Yes.
Dr. Gase,
Yes.
Dr. McBride.
Yes. 8.4, approve the NCOES purchase service contract.
So moved.
Moved. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there.
So Dr. Gase 1 and Mr. Perez 2. Mr. Richards?
We currently have at Noble a unit, a special education unit that is run by a teacher that we've hired through the NCO ESC. And part of that agreement is that they will actually pay rent to us for that classroom at Noble. So this is just to approve the rent that we will collect for Noble.
Questions or discussion?
I think I described this when I discussed my visit to Noble at the last meeting. I got to see this unit and Mr. Newlove explained it, so yes.
Mr. Cook?
Dr. Gase,
Yes.
Mr. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Kizabeth,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Dr. McBride.
Yes. 8.5, approve on-site technical services agreement.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
As staff are aware, and I think I updated the board, Mr. Weber is our technology director is going to be taking a job. Well, he is actually working for the ESC. He's taking a different job for the ESC at the end of December. So Mr. Cook luckily has some experience with a different company. For the remainder of this year, he calls it Renatech, which is fine. So we're going to be doing that for the rest of the year. It'll be a person that's here every day to provide the training and oversight and support. But that gives us and Mr. Bose a little bit of time to come up with what will be our plan long-term to deal with that absence moving forward. So it at a cost for the rental tech that's basically the same as what we were paying for Mr. Weber. So there's really no cost increase at all. If so, it's nominal.
It's nominal, yes, a couple $1,000 difference between the two.
Any questions or discussion?
Yeah, just a quick, I don't know if it's a question or a comment. Procedure change, right? I think there was probably a call Tim when you have problems kind of approach to things. So we'll have that handled, I hope.
Yes, that'll be something that we have to address as well.
And so to clarify, Mr. Weber was employed through a purchase service agreement.
Correct.
So he wasn't actually an employee, but I would still like to thank him for the
Yes.
years that he had here.
Correct.
So thank you very much.
And he's not going far. He's just going to
Okay.
be down the road at
Down
the
the road.
ESC. So
Okay.
Any further questions or discussion? Mr. Cook?
Mr. Kizabeth,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Perez,
Yes.
Dr. Gase,
Yes.
Dr. McBride.
Yes. 8.6, adopt a resolution approving grant application. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. DeVore has worked on this with the Ottawa, well, it's listed on there, the Waste Management District. This is to get new trash cans for the stadiums that will actually have lids. The hope is that we can decrease the number of bees that we have around our trash cans because we continually have problems with bee stings around the stadium. So the hope is by having lids, we will decrease this. So this is for a grant application. There is a small matching amount to this if we would be awarded. And that's part of the agreement.
Questions or discussion? Mr. Cook?
Dr. Gase,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Kizabeth,
Yes.
Dr. McBride.
Yes. Okay. That concludes our action items, and this now brings us to board discussion, which is item 9. So I'll open it up first to my fellow board members on pieces you'd like to discuss. Mr. Kizabeth has brought a prop, so I feel like he's ready.
Yes. Mr. Richards and Dr. McBride and I made a presentation to OSBA on superintendent search. We had about 40 people show up for it. The evaluations, we didn't get a lot, but they were all positive. And also at the OSBA conference, we had a chance to hear Chuck Underwood on America's Generations. We are working with 6 generations currently in our country. I bought the book because I was very fascinated by the presentation. It's got about 800 pages. It'll take me about 4 years to read it. So if anybody's interested, this is 4th in line for me on my current reading list. So if anybody's interested in it, I have it available for any board member to be interested. Secondly, Gail Schreiner passed away. Her funeral is Wednesday. Calling hours are tomorrow. She taught here for a number of years. She was an elementary teacher. She worked with special ed kids. I think she was at the gifted program. She was a very important member of our staff. She died at the untimely age of 77, and her calling hours are tomorrow. But I'd like for us to remember Gail Schreiner.
Can I just tell a Gail Schreiner story? Because this is great. So she was the head of the Heights program. And my youngest son was in the Heights, and he wanted to build a hoverboard. And so we built a hoverboard with using a vacuum cleaner on the blow. And so we were in the middle school here down in on the hallway outside of the gym, the back hallway. And she came in a dress, and she got on the hoverboard. She was the first person to ride the hoverboard. She was a great sport. She really was. She was enthusiastic with the
Yes,
kids.
she was.
Yeah, very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kizabeth.
Mr. Kisbeth, can you extend the condolences on behalf of the board when you go? And then I guess, are there 6 generations of us to split chapters in that book or no? That we can report
Divvy
out?
that.
Is what?
He was saying, how many generations are there? We could split it up amongst the board members to read.
But just one announcement. Tomorrow, girls are hosting Liberty Benton. Girls basketball, come and cheer them on. They won their opener this year, so I think that's going to be an exciting program. And everybody else is still in, I think, scrimmages, and wrestling is also starting soon, I think, and bowling.
So a couple things. was the OSBA canceled then the second day? How did that end up?
So the final day of OSBA, there was supposed to be the induction of the new president, who is a board member at Tusky Valley. Tusky Valley, coincidentally, is where I went to elementary school. And on the way to, typically the tradition is the new incoming president. They bring a delegation from that school to recognize them and even have performers performed from that host school. So Tusky Valley was on their way to the conference to celebrate that president when they were in a car accident, when the bus was hit, and I believe 3 students and 3 adults perished on the way to the conference. And so what they did is they canceled. It was just the afternoon of the conference.
All right.
It was just the final afternoon. But that was out of respect for the kids and those staff members that were on the way to see the president.
Yeah, okay. I was out of the country, but I saw that announcement and it was like, wow, tragic.
So we were, except for Dr. Gase, who was out of the country at the time, we were able to attend OSBA and included our newly elected other board member, which is Ms. Steffi. And it was a really incredible event. I think we had a number of leadership from the district who were also present. I'm not going to know the number off the top of my head, but a good number. It was definitely a somber end to it, but I do believe that the district was very well represented and that each of the board members and leadership there were able to bring back really great pieces to the district. That was great to see.
The heartbreaking part, Dr. Gase, is that here's a group of kids that were on their way to celebrate
Right.
an adult being inducted as a president, and instead it becomes their demise.
Tragic.
Very tragic.
So one of the pieces that I'd like to engage in a discussion on, and I don't know that we've had discussion before, but coming up soon, we will have our organizational meeting, which that'll be in January. So typically the organizational meeting happens, it's very brief in that we talk about committees, we adopt buildings, and we explore the leadership for the next year, for the next board. I do think that it is professional and respectful that we start having those discussions. If there are people who are interested in leadership roles, the ones that we elect are president and vice president of the board. And I know we had talked about it being something that rotates each year. I know we had talked about making sure that we have a new member and an old member sitting in those, not new member, but people whose terms are not up yet sitting in those roles. You know, Mr. Williams, I know that we had talked about you had interest in serving in that president seat. Is that still present? Are there others who are interested in that? Just wanted to see if we could have a discussion about it. We clearly wouldn't vote on it until the organizational meeting, but we could start discussing those pieces. Are you still interested in that role?
Yes.
Absolutely. Are there others who are interested in that president seat?
And I think, to piggyback on what I discussed, like the last year, is I was kind of in favor of like the rotating thing to give board members the opportunity to do it. But I think in further enhancing it, if we use like other boards do, the president and then the vice president basically is the president-elect, so that they're knowing that they're going to step into that role and just aren't jarred into it. And yeah, people could say they don't want to do it. It is a big commitment. You've done it, I've done it, and Dr. Gates has done it. So, but it also, I think, puts the focus on the board and not the individuals, that the board functions regardless of who's president, that the board comes first. And so, but, because I believe at this point you would be next, and then Larry would be another one who hasn't served, and then Heidi when she gets on the board. But I haven't discussed that with her or with you guys, so.
It does sound like, Mr. Williams, you still have interest in that role.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Dustin's willing, and I'm willing to serve where necessary. Not a problem.
And Dr. Gase, it'll be one of the first times at an organizational meeting you haven't been there in a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long has it been?
8 years. 8 years, yeah. So
So you are our most senior, and you will be stepping away.
stepping away, yeah.
And then I think that'll make Mr.
I've seen a
Perez.
lot in
You have seen
8
a lot.
years. Yeah.
I'll certainly say it next month, Doctor.
Follow
Your
up on your
work has been
discussion, though.
appreciated.
Right. So,
We
so
mentioned buildings, and we've always done it. We didn't actually do anything this second. I mean, do you have a plan for what you want us to do? We used to adopt buildings, and we did the donate.
I don't think it's up to him. I think it's up to us. And I think, unlike in the past, we need to be very deliberate about why we're doing things. I think things that come to mind are the building assignments, the legislative
Liaison that I've had for.
liaison, the student achievement liaison. I think we've named these things without setting expectations about why we're doing them or what or what that person is expected to do month to month for the board. So I think at the organizational meeting, we need to be a lot more deliberate about, if you're the legislative liaison, just as an example, like what does that mean, and what would we rely on you for, and what's our expectation every month of what that person might bring to a meeting?
And I think that having this, or at least starting the discussion now, and then I think continuing it into December, the organizational meeting is when those things have to be decided and voted on, because they have to be in by a certain day. Is it the 15th? So starting that discussion in January, we typically end up, there's not really a discussion to be had. So it almost sounds like we're looking at like what those, like the committees or those different roles, having a description of what those are.
Yeah.
The student achievement, that had not been a role until you came on the board.
Right.
We've adjusted some committees. I still think that there is some room probably to explore the committees. But I think that starting the discussion in January, we're too late. Too late to change things because they have to be in by January 15th.
Yeah, including the delegate to the conference.
Including the delegate to the conference. So I think that if we could, in the December meeting, set aside time during this to outline what those roles are, what the expectations are them. Mr. Richards also can look at committees in December and have decided what those are and laid those out. So then in January, when we select those, whatever committee meetings or committees we still have, we can do so with a more intentional component to it.
I think to follow up on what you said, though, it'd be interesting to know what the board wants out of our building assignments if we keep those, and what our expectations are for it. And because what I meant with you is, we also have the policy which limits what we do at schools professionally, just can't show up, and stuff like that. And setting those expectations early on is like what we actually want out of those and what they expect. And then I think we did have some other appointments that we eventually have to make. And I think, were you able to find out about the park board? Okay. Because there's apparently somebody was supposed to appoint to the Park and Recreation Board in Tiffin to a 3-year term. Is that what it was? So.
Maybe we can explore some of those further so that we can be better prepared for that organizational meeting in January. Any other pieces for discussion?
I think I would like to at least do some discussion about our work session, since it was it televised, or was our work session on camera?
No, it was not.
Not,
No.
yeah. I think what we talked about is starting to make public aware. I think it's perfect time to start is right now. We start to make the public aware about what we're planning, what we're thinking about, so that,
So around like
plant the seed, yeah.
So around like the intentional increasing education and awareness around the state of the district finances, what we're looking at, what those forecasts are looking like.
I mean, it's no surprise, we've talked about, we need money. We've talked for years. And the only question is how much and how soon. And like one of the key points I think Mr. Cook brought up is, better to start slow and not have a big shock. And then, we can show what we're doing with the money we've been provided, and should be show judicious use of it and see dividends, and then maybe we'll earn the trust of the community to get more. I think that's the take-home message that I had today, is that we ought to be promoting that mindset.
Any other pieces from that work session that you wanted to highlight, or that anybody wanted to highlight?
Yeah, there was I think two key takeaways, or probably three. One of them was item 8.2, right? The guidance about where to keep the cash on hand, and the other two were for Mr. Richards and for Mr. Cook, getting that capital improvements list prioritized, right? So we can gauge what the right number is, right? And the second was and I'm going to draw a blank. Help me out. Boy, that's embarrassing. Mr. Cook was going to put together some some ranges of, once we really have a good hold on what we're going to need for both capital and operating.
Correct.
Where we would sit in terms of, what are the ranges of an ask of the community, so we can give guidance and make some decisions around that in upcoming months. All right, so those are the two big takeaways from today's.
And I think those summaries highlight that the board and leadership are committed to very intentional processes around this, very intentional education and awareness, but also being very mindful stewards of the finances and of community finances, right? Like making sure that we're looking not just at right now, but looking long-term and not asking for more than we need, but being intentional in what we ask for and when we ask for it.
Yes.
Any other thoughts, pieces, discussion? So we will have an executive session this evening, which is item 10. We'll hold an executive session to consider the employment of public employees or officials. But we do not anticipate action afterwards. So I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you. I ran out of words.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Cook?
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Dr. Gase?
Yes.
Mr. Kizabeth?
Yes.
Perez? Dr. McBride?
Yes. So we will move to the media center and we will not have action following. Our next regular board meeting is December 18th at 6:30 p.m. here. That is a week earlier than it typically would fall in the rotation. Thank you.